Welcome to the Writer's Dream. This is a show where authors can talk about how they write their books, how they publish their books, and how they market their books. You can find us on ltveh.org. Just look for the videos, and our show is there. We are also on Facebook. Guess what the title of the Facebook page is? It's The Writer's Dream. You can find me on YouTube, but you have to look for my name, my whole name, Linda Maria Frank, and there are over 100 interviews with authors. If you are interested in how books are created, if you're interested in some interesting local authors, this is the place to go. Lots of information. If you are a budding writer, we have lots of advice for you. You can also find us, as I said, on Facebook, YouTube, and also Cablevision. Cablevision Long Island, Channel 20, on Fridays at 3 p.m. So let's get started with today's episode. Our guest today is Joe Licari, and he is the author of Mia's Mouses, notice Mouses, Mia's Mouses, and Mia's Marvelous Farm Adventure. So welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Linda. Happy to be here.
Good. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, this writing has always been something that I've been interested in. It's something I've always done really as part of my job. But confession, I retired after a 40-something year career in a completely different field. I was in the computer industry and was a product manager. Started off as a programmer years ago and then was a product manager. And I worked for different companies, Symantec and Microsoft and a variety of companies. And my last position was here on Long Island at Zebra Technologies. And I loved it. But I got a little older. I got into my early 60s and my kids grew up and one of them's getting married this Friday, July 4th, by the way.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. But I realized that I just came to this conclusion that I needed to be doing something else, and I wasn't quite sure what that was at first, right? And I know a lot of people as they get into their retirement years, many people go through that transition, and I gave it a lot of thought. I did a lot of planning. I did a lot of thinking about that, and ultimately, I ended up doing a number of things, and one of those was putting my creative spirit and creative skills, bringing those to the table. I started taking some classes and I really found it really fun, very interesting, and began writing books.
What kind of classes did you take?
I took a few classes on Coursera. There were a few that I really enjoyed and thought they were really great at Wesleyan University. And they had a number of different classes. They have a great MFA program up there, and they've you know there were classes on plot, on character development, etc. I've also participated in the Southampton Writers Conference,
Uh-huh.
and that is tremendous. I'll be participating in that again July 9th through 13th out at Southampton. So that I found to be a really great immersive experience where you can work with other writers and some very well-known writers, and people from all over the world come to this event. So it's really
Yes.
great exposure, and you learn a lot in that environment.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the most important things when you write is to ally yourself with other authors because you learn from their experiences. And certainly your computer background has got to be a tremendous help to what you're doing. I see, I don't know if you create your own graphics, but um,
No, no,
you have an illustrator?
I feel like I have some modest talents, but not in drawing and illustrating. That's that's not really great for me. I mean, I've done things in computer work before, uh, but no, I in my books I've used an illustrator. I found an illustrator. We can talk a little bit about that, but I found an illustrator, and I very happy with the process that I went through and who I selected, and it's been terrific. So.
Yeah, my story is that if I were the illustrators, everything would be stick figures. So I understand. Okay, so why for kids? Why children's books?
That's a great question, and it's been asked of me before, and I have to say that I didn't know that I was going to write children's books. I didn't have that intent. I didn't go into this with that. I had been writing a memoir sort of book for the last 10 years. That's still in a very early draft state. I kind of moved away from that right now. I've been writing a novel, which I think is now going to be a young adult novel. And happy to share a little bit more about that. But to be honest with you, it was a calling for me. I have a daughter who's a second grade teacher in
Uh-huh.
Nashville, and she's wonderful, and she's loved those kids. And I've gone down to her classroom, and I've read to the kids, and she was also teaching on Long Island for a while, and I would do that here. When my kids were young, lots of parents have stories like this, but I used to bring my guitar at Christmas time, and I used to sing with the kids and play with the kids. And I did a lot of things with all of my three girls during all of the soccer years and skating years and so forth. So, children are great, and I think reading is so important. So, my first book, Mia's Mouses, really it came to me, and this may sound odd, but it came to me in a dream. Uh, right about the time I was just about retired, I woke up one morning and on my lips I was saying, "The Mouses of Maria." And I have no idea what that dream was about. I really don't. But I'm very faithful. I'm part of St. Philip's and James parish here in St. James, Long Island. And I've asked God for guidance and for help, and I didn't know, but I couldn't let this idea go. And then I started thinking about it. I said, wait a minute, Mia's mouse. First of all, it's not mouses, the mouses of Maria. It should be mice. And then I started looking into it, and I started researching, and I started researching plural nouns, and started to uncover irregular plural nouns. Right. The easy ones are the ones that end with s and es, but then there's a whole list of irregular plural nouns. And I started researching the things that children have difficulty learning, especially children with English as a second language. And because we think English is tough for us, it's crazy hard for children
English
that
is a
know another language.
English is a very difficult
It's
language because it
crazy.
has so many branches. It really doesn't follow in many ways, a very strict regimen like Latin. I went to Catholic school. I had 3 years of Latin, and
Yeah.
everything follows a strict regimen. I mean, you put the noun here and the verb here. But I'm going to tell you why I do books for young people. It's a very selfish reason, very egocentric, because I think that books for adults hit the bestseller list. People read them and then they fall off the bestseller list and they go into the bookstore in the back
Yeah.
shelf or whatever. And you don't hear about them. I mean, there are some authors who really make it big, but something like Nancy Drew. My mother read Nancy Drew, and I
Hmm.
thought to myself, if I'm going to write a book, I want it to be able, if it ever makes it, I want it to be able to be something that goes on. So I don't use a lot of modern slang. I try to stay away from a little bit of, I can't entirely, but I try to stay away from technology and computers and cell
Hmm.
phones and whatnot, just so the books are more or less will be able to go from generation to generation. But that was my thinking.
And
So
timeless stories, right?
that's
That's wonderful,
well,
right?
I think children's books are timeless stories because you're doing something that really doesn't have to do with a particular time. It has to do more with the story and the characters, and they can transcend any time. Okay,
Yeah.
so what
So
happens to me as mouses?
what happens in Mia's Mouses, the story?
Don't give
The,
away too much.
that's okay. So Mia is a young girl who is just a very happy girl that's loves to dance, loves to play, loves to make friends. And one of her wonderful traits is she loves to learn new things, and she has a lot of curiosity. And those are traits that I admire in kids and I love in children, right? You want to try to promote that feeling of curiosity and learning around them. And I sometimes when I go to schools and I read the stories and I do workbooks with the kids, I one of the questions I ask them is, when you read the story, when you hear the story, what did Mia find after she learned something new? What did she do with that information? She shared it with others. And I said, now you've learned some new things today. Go home, share it with your mother, your sister, share it with your dog, share it with the people around you, share it with your friends. And so that's something that I think is important. So Mia develops this friendship, believe it or not, with these three mice. Squeaky, who likes to sneeze, and Speedy, who runs very fast, and Nibbles, who likes to eat berries and cheese. And she becomes friends with them, and they dance and they enjoy themselves. But she continues to call them mouses. And somebody corrects her at one point, and she's puzzled by that. She's, why is it mouses? Why is it not mouses? Why is it mice? I don't understand. I don't know if I can remember that. So she goes and with her friends, she goes and visits her teacher, Miss Jess, at the school, who is just so enamored with her, and she's so happy that she's got a student that's so bright, and she encourages her curiosity, and she starts going through all of the different types of plural nouns and regular and irregular plural nouns. And when she learns all of that towards the end of the book, I've given away the full story. She ends up celebrating that, and she shares that knowledge with others. And it's a fun story. It's a fun read. I found that children that are very young, I've read it to preschoolers, and they get it. They enjoy it. They enjoy the story. They love the mice. But the older kids, second grade, even third grade, I've read it to fourth grade kids too, which generally are not reading picture books anymore.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
they love the story also, but they know about plural nouns or they're learning about plural nouns, and it's right on the curriculum. Second grade curriculum is really ideal for that.
Well, children and mice. I have to tell you a little story. I taught for many, many years, and I taught in Seaford. And in the middle school, we had a science center. And the woman who ran the science center encouraged kids to bring in animals, their pets, if they couldn't keep them at home and whatnot. And we had a number of mice, and we had the mouse mothers.
Hmm.
These were girls who came in and they became very attached to these various, most of the mice were white, little white mice, and took care of them. So children
Very
have
cute.
something with mice.
Very
And
cute.
there are also people who have things with rats, if you've
Hmm.
noticed. I mean, if you watched Old Creatures Great and Small,
Hmm.
Siegfried has a pet rat that sits on his shoulder. So there's something about rodents that evidently attracts people. Um, and if you remember the Rocky and Bullwinkle show, I
Oh,
hate Mises to pieces. So the mice
Mrs.
were Mises. So yeah,
Uh,
there's something about that. But I think that's very good. I suspected when I read your various materials that you probably were an English teacher, but you're
no,
not.
I'm not. My mother was a music teacher. I have a sister who's an English teacher uh, up in up in Niagara. I have another sister out in Orient Point that works in the Greenport school district. So I'm around a lot. Man, my daughter, of course, is a teacher. So I've been around a lot of teachers. But for me, you asked about what I did and how I got into this. I found that I grew up musically. I grew up playing the guitar, playing the piano. I played the trumpet. I played the trumpet through college, after college. Um, a lot of people don't know this, and it sounds very strange in today's day and age, but I worked for Grumman Corporation in the 1980s, and Grumman had a band. And I played trumpet in the band with some of these guys that played in the Army bands and the Marine bands back in World War II. And it was such an honor to play with all of these folks. Every time Grumman rolled out a new plan, or the governor came down, we would be there playing, and we'd play a summer concert series. So music was a big part of it. And why is that? Why is that relative to this? Because I think I got to the point in my life where I said, "Look, I've worked. I've done what I needed to do for my family. I needed, to take and put my kids through college. Lucky. I've had a great career, but I feel like there's been this creative energy that's been waiting to get out. And I wanted to be able to do something with it. So now I teach guitar and piano a few days a week at Guitar Center, and I'm writing children's books, and I'm doing school reading programs and library reading programs. And I'm having a great time. And I feel like
Yeah.
it's an opportunity to give back to the community.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who work in corporate America feel that way. You know, that corporate America is one thing, but I don't think it always gives you the opportunity to reach out socially and connect with people and do something that you think is valuable. So the best children's books have a lesson embedded in the plot. So what would you say your lesson or lessons are?
Well, there are several lessons. I think I've talked about a few of them, but one is that be curious around about the world around you. Be curious about language. Both of my books are focused on language, and it's okay to not understand things, but be curious and learn. And and obviously the learning message in both of the books is one is learning about plural nouns, and the other book uh, where Mia goes to the farm. Uh, Mia's marvelous farm adventure, and Mia and her friends discover homophones, which are words that sound the same but mean different things. And there's a long list of homophones, and they in this book they uncover, they start giggling and laughing about pairs of pears and a horse and even a bear baby bear, right? So they start learning about homophones. So there are language lessons. And then finally, as I mentioned, I think the message is learn and then share what you've learned with others. And that's how, boy, I continue to do that today, and I know a lot of people that continue to do that today, right? It's constantly learning, constantly growing, and that's what's wonderful about this life we have.
Absolutely. Um, so a children's picture book is, to
Yeah,
me, it's a very daunting thing because
yeah.
the construction of it follows specific rules. You have to do certain things, otherwise, it's not accepted by a publisher. Can you explain the process?
Yeah. For me, for my first book, for me as Mouses, we'll talk about the publishing process that I went through as well. I kind of looked at things, Linda, and I said, I think this is good. I went through many, many edits, and I belong to several organizations on Long Island. LIAG, the Long Island Authors Group, LICWI, which is Long Island Children's Writers and Illustrators Group, um, Long Island Authors, and also SCBWI. And on top of that, the very first group I joined was at Smithtown Library. We have a reading group, and we critique each other's writings. And we have a prompt, and every month everybody writes, but we learn from each other, and you learn from critiquing others as well, right? So it's very valuable. But so I had that experience, and so um, when I was ready to take and find an illustrator, this book I decided not to take and try to submit through agents and try to get published because I knew that would take a long time. It was my first book and I wanted to get it out there, and I'm not getting any younger. So I said, let me give that a shot. And I researched that quite a bit. And I ended up going with a publisher, and there are several out there, but I ended up going with Archway Publishing. And
Me too.
Archway, do you know
Yeah,
Archway?
me too.
Yeah, you too.
Two of my
Archway, I can
books. Yeah,
they're a subsidiary of Simon and Schuster, which is one of
right.
the things that attracted me to it. But it still costs money. But they're making an investment also, and they have a lot of skilled people on board, as you know, that can
Hmm.
help with editing and layout and so forth. So for this first book, I used Archway and as a hybrid publisher. So I could have used Archway to take and find the illustrator, but that was very expensive. So I started looking on my own, and I actually used Fiverr. I don't know if you're familiar with that site, but there's a lot of people very talented. And I found what I did is I took portions of my book. Um, by the way, it's in rhyme. We can talk about that. That's kind of a tie into
Yes,
musical.
that was the thing that put me off. Was
Yeah,
rhyming.
a lot of it's interesting. The more I've talked to so many people that are experts in publishing, and you tell them you're writing a children's book, and then you say that it's in rhyme, and they run the other way. It's so interesting that there seems to be this movement of moving away from rhyme because it's hard, it's complicated,
Mhm,
Not only do you have to get the rhyme right, you have to get the meter right, and you still have to tell the story, right, through
mhm,
all of that. So there's multiple levels of difficulty with that. People think it's easy, but it's difficult to do it
mm-mm-mm.
well. And so many people don't do it well. I think agents and publishers are just they just don't want to go there. So
Mhm.
I think I think I had some success with that, and I blame that on my musical background. Meter's not an issue. Finding the right
Mm.
words can sometimes be difficult, but it was that was a part of the creative process for me, and I love that. By the way, when kids hear stories in rhyme too,
They
they
remember
love it and they want to hear it again,
and they
and they want to hear it
remember.
again, and they
But they
remember.
remember it. Remember when we went to school? What did we learn? We learned everything in these songs and rhymes, especially, and they still do today. So
It's true.
because a rhyme is easy to remember, not easy to write, but it's easy to remember.
You know, Linda, I hope I don't get in trouble with my daughter, but one of my daughters went to medical school, and medical school is crazy, and uh, and she has just this knack of. She was always one of those people that could sing songs and remember all the words the first time she hears it. She was amazing. I played a guitar and I can hear things musically. The words to the song take me a little bit longer to learn. But you use that talent and that capability in medical school to get through a lot of the studies that she had. It's amazing. So it works with young children. What a great skill to learn when you're young, because it can help you later in your life.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you asked me about the illustrator. I don't want to let that go. So I found the illustrator by sharing part of my story, and I asked three different illustrators to share with me a single page of
Mhm.
drawing of what I wanted to do. And uh, one of them wanted me to pay them, the other two didn't. That was fine. And they came back, and then I ended up having a conversation with the illustrator that I picked, and we decided to move forward.
No, that's great. Yeah, I also have an illustrator who I really like. She's done all my books, and I met her through another author. She was illustrating. She was doing a lot of work. She did the signs for some of the nurseries out east.
Mm.
She's done some work for churches and whatnot for their programs, but then she went into book illustrating, and she's a member of Liqui as well, and
Oh,
she also does. She's writing her own books now, and I really like her. You know, I can tell her about something, and she really has a way of capturing it. And one of the weirdest things was I have two series. The second series is called the Buccaneers series, and it's
mhm.
about a group of eighth graders who live on a remote island and solve mysteries. And she wanted me to describe the characters. There's five of them. So the main character is a girl, and she goes to a Catholic school. It happens in 1947. And she said,
Mm.
"Well, what does the uniform look like?" And I described the uniform, and she made the illustration. And I have a picture of me in that uniform that looks just like the illustration. And she never saw that picture. I thought that was very weird.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So everybody has their little weird stories. You have your dream, and I have my.
I'll tell you that I told you my daughter is a second grade teacher in Nashville, and I said, let me send the illustrator a picture of my daughter, and her name is Jessica, by the way, and he did a great job,
Look at that. There she
and
is.
that's a good representative, not perfect, but it's a good representative of my daughter. So that's kind of a nice, people talk about Easter eggs and programs and things like that. That's a little bit of an Easter egg in the book that the teacher is actually my daughter, Jessica.
Okay, so what's next? Are you going to do another one?
Well, I did Mia's Marvelous Farm Adventure, and you
Uh-huh.
asked about the publishing process. This book I decided I had learned a lot, and I didn't use Archway for this. I used Ingram Sparks and Amazon KDP.
Okay.
And then and then to as I started doing these book fairs and craft fairs, I found that kids, by the way, when I'd go into schools, the workshop included doing word searches and puzzles and other things. So I created a workbook then. This I did on Amazon KDP
That's
as well.
great. Yeah,
So this
that's
will,
great.
so it it's a little less expensive and people can buy this together with that book. And then there's a coloring book with a coloring book as well for me as mouses. So those I just did through Amazon KDP, and it's been wonderful to have those
But
available
those
as
are
well.
great marketing strategies because I know you and I are having the similar experiences of self-publishing more or less, and then
Yes,
having to do all of our own marketing. And everything you do to market is on you.
that's right. It
And you
is.
have some great ideas there. And certainly you've been able to take your musical talent, your computer talent, put it all together. And this is a really beautiful series because it's not just a little story. You're helping kids to learn. Any advice that you have for budding writers?
I think in our society, people are so busy. And even when we're not busy, we're constantly listening. We're on our phones. We're, you know how crazy the world is. I found that you need to make time. You need quiet time.
Oh yeah.
If you can get a half hour or 45 minutes a day, it sounds like a lot, but just find some quiet time where it's just go to the library. I do that. I love going to the library, sometimes to read and sometimes just to think or just to meditate. Um, but we need quiet time. And I think when you have quiet time, it's an opportunity to listen. And the universe is speaking to you, and I believe God is speaking to us. If we turn off the TV and we turn off our phones and we just listen a little bit, and you'll get guidance that way. We all have unique talents and skills, and we all have purpose in this world, and your purpose changes throughout the years. So just give yourself some quiet time, listen, whatever it may be, and if it's writing, then write. And the best advice I think I could give writers is to make sure that you have some of these groups that participate in a Long Island authors group, or your local library probably has a writing group, and
Mhm. Yeah, they all
and
do.
those are wonderful things to take advantage of to help your writing get better and better and to help others as well.
Thank you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Linda.
Take
Bye bye.
care.